Key point 1. Love is a gift, not a sacrifice. Codependency is a family disease that goes from generation to generation. As a rule, it is characteristic of those whose close relatives had an addiction, alcoholism, drug addiction, gambling, sex addiction, etc. A person who grows up next to an addict forms specific behavioral patterns and ways of thinking. For example, a daughter learns not to make noise when her father comes home drunk. Or a brother gets used to calling all the city's drug dens when his sister disappears for several days. A person who lives with an addict will likely devote their whole life to saving their loved one. However, irritation may develop, which bubbles up until the negative feelings overshadow and eradicate all the good ones. This type of love almost always intertwines with hatred, resentment, disappointment. Codependents often feel betrayed, lonely, and tired because they give all their energy to helping others without getting the same in return. The problem is that codependents are very bad at being aware of their emotions, and even worse at expressing them. They will endure until they become depressed, uncontrollably aggressive, or until they have a nervous breakdown. And then, codependents will blame their loved ones for all their troubles. Codependency compels individuals into maintaining emotionally damaging relationships. The cruel fate and the irony lie in the fact that people who grew up in dependent families always find dependent and problematic partners in their adult life. Saving, serving, and quietly hating is their way of loving. So how can you break out of this vicious circle of pain? Let's find out. Key point 2. Why do we go back to where we get hurt? We can view codependency as a defect in a behavioral system. It is a set of internal rules that has become an unconscious habit. Feelings for the addict cause the codependent to adjust to the problem in an unhealthy way. So, the codependent has learned love that harms them and their partner. It does not encourage people to improve. It only supports their existing issues. Here we are talking not only about chemical addictions, but also about physical or psychological disorders. For example, the children of a depressed mother are more likely to be codependent. After all, from an early age, they learn to adapt to their mother's mental instability. They get used to caring for her when she cannot care for herself. In such a system of relations, the mother's needs always come to the fore. Children come to neglect or entirely ignore their desires and needs. They feel good when they help their mother feel better and are distraught if they cannot. When such children need help or attention, they feel guilty and ashamed. Giving comes to them much more naturally than receiving. The catch is that although codependents do not recognize or voice their needs and never ask for help, they still need understanding, empathy, and assistance. Moreover, codependents, sometimes even without realizing it themselves, still expect support and recognition from their loved ones. Later, the children of a depressed mother may seek solace and love in other relationships. Adult codependents hope to find someone who will give them enough love and understanding to fill the gaps in their wounded soul. They dream of getting from a romantic relationship what they lacked so much in childhood. But, as a rule, they tend to choose partners who cannot give them what they want. Why? Unconsciously, we all look for and repeat childhood patterns to experience familiar feelings, even if they are painful. Our psyche often perceives known pain as safer than unfamiliar joy. The good news is that all of this is beatable, but it takes a lot of work. Key point 3. The invisible benefit of being a victim. Not all codependents are ready to overcome themselves because changing an already developed behavior and thinking system is challenging. It hurts, like re-breaking a crooked bone to fix it. Many codependents perceive themselves as victims. You can often hear them complaining about devoting their lives to people who do not appreciate it. Codependents are also prone to thankless work. This type of person settles for worse working conditions, low pay, and overtime. Their bosses ironically call them ideal employees. From the outside, it may seem they have no self-respect or awareness of their value. However, it is not always the case in reality. Codependents respect themselves just for helping someone selflessly, out of love, out of their spiritual depth. The fact is that there is a non-obvious secondary gain to codependency. Helping others gives codependents a sense of self-worth and fills their lives with meaning. For example, the wife of a chronic loser, oddly enough, may not want her husband to succeed, since after every failure, he seeks solace and needs her. Subconsciously, The wife is afraid that her husband's potential success will make her obsolete in his eyes. Codependents have low self-esteem, so they tend to think their loved ones only need them if they are helpful. Therefore, a codependent wife can benefit from her husband's failure, because this guarantees maintaining her relationship, even if it is unhappy or unhealthy. In his famous novel Nausea, Jean-Paul Sartre describes a case of codependency with secondary gain. In the book, a woman named Lucy is married to an alcoholic. She constantly complains about her suffering because of her husband's drunkenness, but does not want to change anything. She likes that people pity her and sympathize with her. It gives Lucy significance. Codependent behavior is used as a coping strategy to evade confronting fears and traumas. Indeed, for a codependent, caring for someone is the meaning of life, and to stop is to lose that meaning. It takes a lot of courage to discover and accept codependency as a problem and then abandon this boy and learn to live without it. Did you know? The term codependency was coined in the 1970s when psychiatrists lumped all chemical addictions into one study category. The word comes from co-alcoholic. Key point 4. Help yourself before helping others. Where is the line between healthy empathy and codependency? Taking care of loved ones is normal as long as you don't pay for it with peace of mind. When your mood and well-being depend directly on another person, it is time to address the problem. Codependents tend to take things personally. They can endlessly look for reasons for their partner's addiction in themselves. Perhaps they need to be softer, try harder, and motivate more. But the truth is, codependents don't have to do anything other than take care of themselves. Avoid codependency by remembering our soulful responsibility is for ourselves. We can only control ourselves and our lives. Other people can govern themselves accordingly. We must allow others to be independent and make their own choices so they can grow and develop. The only person you can now or ever change is yourself. Melody Beattie. We must learn to act, not react. Our actions should be motivated by our desires and goals, not by a partner's behavior. Don't let the other person control your mood. Here are a few tips on how to do this. Track your emotions. Always ask yourself what caused your anxiety, restlessness, energy loss, or anything else you're feeling. Draw causal links so your negative emotions will no longer seem to you as something unreasonable or imagined. Before you act or react to something, ask yourself why you are doing it. To avoid impulsive actions that you will regret later, delay decisions until you have calmed down. Do 10 squats, shower, or drink a coffee. Anything to distract yourself and regain your balance. Write down your thoughts. Keeping a diary of emotions is a beneficial habit for someone learning to control their state of mind. Discussing your concerns in an intimate, confidential conversation with a friend is also helpful. Find out what makes you feel safe, calm, and balanced. Make a list and use these methods when you think you're losing control. Key point 5. What would your inner child say? It is challenging for codependents to admit that they have a problem because on the surface, it is not them who are sick, but someone close to them. They are ready to bear responsibility for the addict, but not for themselves. They are ready to control and regulate someone else's life and not their own. After all, being responsible and kind to oneself is much more challenging than showing mercy, infinite forgiveness, and encouraging the vices of another person. However, freedom from codependency begins with acknowledging and realizing the truth about the problem. We must understand our feelings, identify them, and stop minimizing them. We need to look at our partners and see complete, fully functional individuals in them. It is essential to realize that they are not victims of their addiction, but an active accomplice who can make their own choice in favor of healing. We must articulate and verbalize what we experience. When we tell the truth out loud, we remove the veil of shame and mystery and reduce it to a simple fact. Then we can see that the problem is not so terrible and incomprehensible, and we can solve it. The next important step in ridding ourselves of codependency is understanding the problem's roots. Where does codependency come from? What events in our childhood or adolescence shifted our focus from ourselves to other people? Why have we forbidden ourselves to enjoy life and choose what's best for us? Connecting with our inner child aids in comprehending and improving our behavioral patterns. We must remember the nature of genuine kindness and its original purpose. First of all, it enriches the one who gives it. Compassion should bring joy and abundance, not oppression. Otherwise, it has no value. If we absolutely can't feel good about something we're doing, then we shouldn't do it, no matter how charitable it seems. Melody Beattie. Psychotherapists advise patients to use the black letter method. It consists of a person writing to the one who caused them psychological trauma, an open letter in which they express all their anger, resentment, and pain. The whole point is that this letter does not reach the addressee. Thus, the patient confronts not the actual offender, but the offender's image in their mind. This exercise is a way of overcoming old traumas by reconstructing them. Key point 6. It's time to forgive yourself. Getting rid of codependency doesn't have to mean destroying the relationship and no longer loving your partner. It means starting to love and respect yourself and putting yourself first. After getting in touch with our inner feelings and emotions, it's time to reach out to others. We must relearn healthy communication. Manipulation, games, and hints which predominate in codependent relationships must be left behind. Instead, we have to learn to speak openly with our partners. We should tell them what we expect from them and what precisely about their behavior causes us negative emotions. It is also imperative to learn how to express anger. Codependents often forbid themselves from being angry because they believe it makes them bad people, but it is an ordinary natural emotion to which everyone is entitled. While communicating, we should say, "I'm angry because," instead of the usual "you made me angry" with no further explanation. In this way, we take back responsibility for our emotions and feelings. It is equally beneficial for our partners because we give them an apparent immediate reaction to their actions, which positively or negatively reinforces their behavior. When we put ourselves at the center of our lives, everything else falls into place. We live our lives by letting other people live theirs. It's excellent if our lives intertwine, bringing joy and love to our partners and us. Still, we must be brave and strong enough to allow other people to make decisive choices and be responsible for them. Of course, it isn't easy to overcome and reshape yourself when codependency has infiltrated your life. In overcoming it, we will have to go through the stages of denial, anger, bargaining, and depression before we come to acceptance. There will be many obstacles and setbacks along the way. But it is important to remember why we are doing this. We are finally fighting for the most crucial person in our lives, ourselves. We have forgiven other people endlessly. It's time to forgive ourselves. Moreover, a good reason to decide on this is for our children's future. We will do them a great favor if we close the circle of codependency on our generation. It is necessary to be patient in the process of overcoming it and diligently go towards the main goal, a happy and free life. Conclusion. Codependency is a destructive thought system often caused by childhood trauma. Adult children of dependent parents tend to carry the codependent relationship pattern into their later lives. It destroys the relationships with their partners, kills joy and interest in life, reduces self-esteem, and leads to depression. We can overcome codependency with hard, purposeful work on ourselves. We must learn to recognize our feelings, express them, defend our interests, and always put ourselves first. Accepting the idea that only a happy person can be genuinely kind is essential. We cannot force another person to be happy, healthy, and prosperous. We cannot live lives for others, even if we think we know how to do it better. Each person is responsible only for themselves. The only way to escape codependency and unhappiness is to face the truth, admit your problem, and decide to fight for yourself. This thorny path requires patience and can be painful and intimidating, but the result is definitely worth the effort. Try this. Keep a diary of emotions. Write down what upset you, what led to a breakdown, and the prerequisites for this. Keep track of everything that happens in your emotional state. Analyze and work on mistakes to avoid them in the future. Add a hobby to your life. Do what brings you joy and gives you strength so that you are full of energy and can provide time and attention to loved ones without harming yourself. Watch some feature films about codependency. 28 Days, 2000. Smashed, 2012. Misunderstood, 2014. And The Glass Castle, 2017.